Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Shepherd's Podcast. I'm your host, Jefferson.
And I'm Kenji.
Yeah, and today we have a great guest. Today we're welcoming Brad LaMar, author of the Celtic Mythos series, award-winning writer, M&T's Private Detection, Bakery, Zorp the Twisted Breadman, Angler Island, and a good guy and science educator in school. So, Brad, welcome, man. Good to have you, brother.
Hey, appreciate it. I love talking to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, yeah, man, let's get cracking. I mean, I summed it up as best I could for your intro, but yeah, tell everybody a little bit about, kind of what you've been up to, the journey of your young, YA book series that really caught a lot of people's eye, around the world. And yeah, just kind of give us the lowdown and we'll get cracking.
I'll tell you, so my journey to becoming an author is kind of unique. Because I'm a middle school science teacher too, and years ago, I made an assignment, and so writing is always a good thing to include, even in science class, right? So the assignment was to create an alien and then tell me about a day in the life of it. And so I wrote a quick little story called Zorp the Twisted Breadman, and the kids were all saying, "Is this a published book?" And I'm like, "No, I just wrote it this weekend." And they're like, and it was every class period was saying that sort of thing. So I got the idea, like, well, maybe I could publish a book. And sent some query letters back then. It was not anything on the internet. It was all just, snail mail, get through there. You may not hear back from somebody or whatever. But, so sent out some things and didn't get much response. Did get one agent who told me to write a novel.
1 second, Brad. 1 second.
Okay.
Hey, Brad, 1 second. There's some clicking on you every time you're talking. It's popping. Welcome, the Shepherd's Podcast. I'm your host, Jefferson.
And I'm Kenji.
Yeah, today we're welcoming Brad LaMar, award-winning writer, author, Celtic Mythos series, M&T's Private Detection, Bakery, Zorp the Twisted Breadman, Angler Island, and many more. Also, your good all-around guy and science teacher in middle school. So, everyone, welcome Brad LaMar. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely. So I tried to sum it up, but, obviously you're so much bigger and better than what we could say in the first 5 seconds. So, yeah, let's tell everybody a little bit about your journey, and we'll kind of give them a peek behind the curtain about what goes on with an author that is doing a lot of great things, published around the world. And, yeah, let's get cracking.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so I kind of have a unique story of getting into writing and trying to tackle the beast that is becoming an author. So years ago, I was assigning a paper for these kids. I know people hate writing papers and all that, but they did them back when. And anyway, the assignment was to write about the day in the life of an alien because they created planets in a previous lesson, and now they had to come up with a dominant life form. So, and I just gave them an exemplar, so just like an example of what I meant by a day in the life of. So I wrote a little story called Zorp the Twisted Breadman, and class after class I read it to just kept saying, "Is this a published book?" I'm like, "No." And it kind of got me thinking maybe I could become a published author. So I started sending around query letters and didn't get much response at first, but I did get one agent who sent a letter back to me that said, "Like the way you write, but if you really want to break into publishing, you need to write a novel." At the time, she said, because writing children's books was for celebrities and people who have already been in that business. So that's just literally what she said on that letter.
For celebrity.
She said celebrities and people have been doing it for years.
Oh, my God.
I was like, well, I'm neither. So I just sat for a few and I thought, can I write a novel? And then I had some ideas and brainstormed a few things. And I thought, you know what? I think I can. So the very first novel I completed was Angler Island. And I sent it out, I did get an agent from New York, and just kind of nothing happened with it. But in the meantime, I was writing the second book, Angler Island, The Crystal Cavern, and then just had other ideas too. And so around that time, kind of separated from my agent, because that was a big deal, getting an agent at all at the time, and then nothing happening with it was kind of disheartening. But I just kept with it, kept writing. Ended up writing the first Celtic Mythos book, The Obsidian Dagger, and that got me published with a little small company out in North Carolina, and did 3 more books with them, and then they told me that they couldn't quite keep up with it. So if you're planning on writing more, you may want to seek out something different. So I went another route with Angler Island and went through a different publisher. And then I've landed with Narrative Retail and get to be a creator and have all sorts of awesome experiences with the fine people there, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I love how what's impressive about that, man, is that, and everything that I've known about you for the years that we've known each other, is your willingness to go, what do I have to lose? I have everything to gain. And it's just, it's just awesome. And when I first read, I haven't read Angler Island, but I read your other book series, Celtic Mythos, the 4 books, and it's just, me, I love fantasy, and I shared it with Kenji, right? And Kenji read it and loved it, and that was kind of the intro to us working together and getting things off the ground. But yeah, what an interesting story, and the fact that your class was part of it.
Yeah, and they still, like, and these are different kids. Obviously, those kids are old and have kids of their own and stuff like this. But like every group, they get excited about the idea that there could be another book coming out, and so I'll share some of the illustrations with like an upcoming book, Winkerton Wolf, and the students are really excited about it. So it's encouraging to see that they get a little pumped about literature again, So even if it's something silly like a kid's book I write or something, but Kenji knows how out there my brain imagination can go. So
in a wonderful way, though. Can you tell us?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Winkerton Wolf? Because it's part of a bigger series that you're developing right now. Correct?
It absolutely is. It's part of this whole universe of God's Tales. And it connected in there is also M&T's Private Detection and Bakery, which is more of a novella set for middle grade-ish. Kind of a comedy book too, but it's taking the worlds of the Mother Goose tales and nursery rhymes and putting them into just different contexts, like literally putting the Muffin Man as a detective and figuring out and solving cases in Gosling, which is where they live and operate. And so Winkerton is another extension of that, but instead of being just a regular story, it's an illustrated kids book that's written in prose, so it's a nice poem. And so I just have always liked to challenge myself in my writing, and so I do poems, and I do narratives, I do fantasy, historical fiction, whatever. It keeps it interesting for me. But if a reader comes along with me, they're going to get a lot of different types of stories, and that's kind of interesting about that. But anyway, Winkerton, this is kind of an unexpected place for a kid's book, but it's in a civil court lawsuit courtroom, where you have Little Red Riding Hood and the 3 pigs suing the big bad wolf, who's named Winkerton. So never seen anything like it, but it's out there, it's weird, and it's kind of funny. So I think people will like it. So
weird sells, buddy.
Weird sells. That's what I'm hoping on.
No. Yeah, I love that. The concepts are great. So walk us through the kind of the journey of being an author, not just getting an agent, but your book's coming out. I know you've done book signings. What that's like. Just kind of the life of an author, and how that flows.
Okay. It's interesting because especially when you're brand new, your first book comes out, and so my publisher flew out to Indianapolis because I think she has family here too, so this made an obvious choice. And we threw a book launch party, which I had never even heard of before becoming, published, and so that was kind of neat. So a lot of my family came in from my cousins and things like that. 'Cause, no one knows anyone who's published, kind of deal. And so that was a big deal to have that. It made me feel really, really important that I had this accomplishment that, I worked so hard for years. I mean, it probably was a good 10 years of legwork and writing just to get to that point to where I finally got someone else to look at my work and go, this is worth publishing. And that was a feeling. I never wanted to be that person who self-published, from the beginning, because I wanted that confirmation that, all right, I could do it. And I got that with them. So that's one thing. It's all about how you approach it, I guess. Doing signings is always interesting because if you're in a Barnes & Noble or another bookstore and people walk by, they'll see your table and you sitting there, and a lot of times they don't even come up to approach you at all, which is interesting. But then you get other times when you're mocked by people who are just curious about the whole process and want to be authors themselves, and I love that part. I have a student at school right now who keeps sharing stories that he wants to write and comic books that he wants to make, and it's all because I'm a published author and he sees what I have been able to accomplish. And so that's just a whole other aspect of being an educator that helps me to know that I'm doing this for the right reasons and on the right path. Yeah, I want my stories out there. Sure, I would love to be making movies and streaming and video games and all those sorts of things, which hopefully will come some point. But just the knowing how I'm encouraging my students still is pretty awesome. But yeah, you do end up with a lot of your time traveling. Like I traveled up to West Lafayette, so that's not quite a couple hours, but it's an hour and some change from Indianapolis, getting up there to go do a book signing where they also have some sort of board game happening behind you, and it's a college town. Then you go down to Madison, Indiana, which is right on the Ohio River, so it's a really pretty little town, and sign out in the parking lot. I mean, it's just, you could be all over the place, especially starting out early. Went to some cons as well, like Comic-Con kind of thing, but not one in San Diego, but just here in Indy. And just seeing, getting that realization that, this is not the crowd that likes this type of book. And you get a little deflation in your ego a little bit that you're not selling anything here. And it's okay. This is not that crowd. So it happens.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic. It's like when they made the movie Seven and they pitched it with with the people from Driving Miss Daisy, and the people who went to, the fans who went to see Driving Miss Daisy went to see, a movie about a serial killer movie.
Yes, I remember Seven too. It was definitely not Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. And how do you choose what you want to write about? I mean, how do you know, okay, that's the one, that's worth shopping it around, getting it out?
That's a great question, because you're only allowed so much time on the planet to do anything. And so what's worthy of your time? And so I'll come up with ideas. I have probably 7,000 ideas I have not developed. But then I have one I just discovered that I had written so much on it a week and a half ago, and I've been reading it and going, I've already written 62,000 words on this. It's pretty good. And so you just kind of don't know. I definitely when I got published with Celtic Mythos, when I had that first conversation with my publisher, she was like, is this going to be a series? And I said, do you want it to be a series? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, then it's a series. And then I had to come up with other ideas. And so I doubled down on research. And, just kind of got busy on that and so in that first year, I ended up having 2 books come out, The Obsidian Dagger and then The Megalith Union. And on the Megalith Union notes she sent me, I rewrote probably 40% of that book in 10 days, doing 8-hour days once I was out for summer from school. So you got to just pick and choose of what's worthy of your time. What are you passionate about as far as the story or the character or where you're going with it, the genre. I mean, it makes a difference to me. I love a good science fiction. I love a good fantasy. I wrote early on, I don't think I mentioned this, I wrote a lot of stories early on for my kids. I called them Evan and Paige stories, or the Page Tales, and would just keep writing for them. So I make them the stars of the show for these little stories. And so when they were little kids, they loved it. And actually, I got the idea for Celtic Mythos from one of those little stories. So, you just never know where the inspiration comes from, but if you're a creative person and observant and are paying attention to what can happen and willing to do the work, because it's not easy writing novels or books or poems or lyrics or whatever. So that is one thing I did have a little encouragement on. I entered a lyric contest back in 2007, and I actually won the contest. So that was more encouragement to keep on. So I can't write music for nothing, though. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I can see where the process of choosing can be somewhat organic in a way, where either you're getting feedback from your children as you tell them nighttime stories, like you said, for Celtic Mythos, or a story that you are reading to your kids or sharing with your kids in your class, or your agent says, hey, I love this. Is this part of a greater thing with multiple books? And, you're like, of course it is.
Yep, yeah. I'm doing anything. Yeah.
You have all this, live feedback from all your kids and everything, right? And, exactly what's going to be coming up, right, with them, and, what
exactly. But
going.
The crazy part is, this one student I have right now, she'll come up to me and talking about her books she's liking to read right now. And she likes romance books, but they're specifically ice hockey romance books. I don't even know where that came from, but that's apparently something. And she found it. So who knows? You never know with these sort of things.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy part is the story with that got me to do Celtic Mythos. It kind of went like this. I called it Irish Rainbows, and so I take the kids in the story over to Ireland because I have some heritage from Ireland and the whole area. And so that my daughter wanted to go rainbow hunting to see if we could find the leprechauns. And so we end up finding the leprechauns, and we watch them from afar, and they're collecting sparkles, and it's this funny little cute story for the kids. So I put them to bed after reading it to them, and I looked at my computer, and I thought, well, what if a griffin comes through and tears up half the town and kills them?
Oh, my.
So, again, that's why I said my imagination, right? I mean, you guys have been doing it with it for a little while, but that's literally what I just sat there and I thought that. So it comes through there, rips up people, the leprechauns, and steals the king. And bam, that's my story. That's my end point to where I go, all right, I can write this. And so that's where the beginning of that lives. So luckily my kids are old enough to know that that's okay. They're almost 23 and 21, so they're okay with it. They made their peace.
They made their peace with the griffin.
Yeah.
Dad killed our vibe.
All these leprechauns ripped to shreds. I mean, what are you going to do?
Oh gosh, that's funny. When give us some insight, and the listeners some insight, what are some of the things that as a writer that, other potential writers that are listening could relate to, or people who would want to be an author, a novelist, and of course, as you said, have it go the distance like a Harry Potter and things like that,
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are most difficult for you as a writer, whether it's in the craft itself or if it's in the other parts of being an author, because there's so many moving parts to it. It's not just I wrote a book,
Right. Absolutely. It's first thing is you're going to hear no 99% of the time. You could write the best book in the world, and if that publisher doesn't see it that way, doesn't see the potential in it, it's not hitting the market at the right time for that genre or that specific theme or whatever, you're going to hear no. And you have to learn to go, okay, I can move on to the next. And but then you also have to, weigh that time that you're putting in on that story. For instance, I've got probably written at least 40 pages of 15 other books right now. I'm sitting on my computer. And I've had to choose where am I spending my time, even though I really love this idea or this theme. And what I would encourage other people is to go ahead and write those out like that, because you don't know when you're going to come back to it, just like I'm doing with the one currently that Kenji is aware of right now. So, and it's an interesting practice. So if you can keep practicing your craft, your art, then that's not wasted time. So me writing a superhero story over here, or something about Atlantis over here, or something on a far-off planet, or something like that, that's just me getting practice in. That's me doing the repetitions, me shooting free throws, so I get better and better at what I should be getting better at. And so if you have an idea, write it down. That's the advice I gave this young man in my class. He keeps coming up to me, and I said, have you written it down? And, well, no, it's in my head. I said, nope, it will never stay there. You need to write it down. Write it down. Just put in that effort to get some things started. Go ahead and have 5 irons in the fire. For my process, if I'm writing one book, I'm probably writing 6 at the same time. So, and I get a little lost on this one. I don't know where I'm going with it. I shift gears, so that changes my mindset and puts me in a different space, and that helps me. Yeah. It seems like I'm not focused on anything. I'm focused on all of them at the same time. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. I want to zero in on a couple things. The first thing, what do you think that no? You're saying this no that you'll get. What do you think that's about? I mean, I know you gave some examples of maybe it's bad timing, or because sometimes no means no indefinitely, but sometimes there's a phrase I heard getting into entertainment was no is just a soft yes, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes that no is indefinite, and what do you think that's about?
I think it's about resources. I think it's mainly about this spreading yourselves too thin, as far as if you're the person putting up the money for it, like a publisher. You got to pick and choose what you think is going to make sense. But as the creative side of it, it's hard to hear no that many times and see it in writing. Like I said, I was sending out things through snail mail and getting occasionally something back that just said no. They literally write the word no, or not this year, or occasionally I get one that says, please resend this next year, or something like that. But I said, the lady that gave me the advice about writing a novel and why was the only thing I ever got that was real feedback from any agent. And I get it. They're really busy. They're getting bombarded by people who are sending them stuff all the time. So that makes sense. And it said at any time at all to reply was a big deal. So I think you're right. I think now, as I have had the success that I've had, a no is the soft yes. I think it's been morphed that way for me. Whereas at the very beginning of it, that was not the case. It was a no. No, that was it. So I think just putting in the work and sticking to it and being that stubborn person that just refuses to give up on it is, I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. Put the work in, and you know what? One day good things can happen.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Kenji and I talk about this all the time, right? Kenji is like, there's two components to a creative career, right? Everyone's like, I'm super creative, I'm super talented. Okay, great. You are. Awesome. Right? And the second component is the business side of things.
Yeah.
Right? Which what you're kind of, touching on is that there's a business side of things that may generate a no, or may say not right now, or may say that's been done, or whatever. But that doesn't mean that the business side of things needs to be neglected, right? You go like, oh, well, I don't have any control over that. Or what's your perspective on like the business side of having a creative career?
That's really interesting, because I did not train in business. Through my studies in college, my degree is in elementary education with a minor in science and minor in driver's education. You can ask me about driver's education some other time. There's some interesting stories there. But very, very interesting.
A kid's book about driving.
Oh, my gosh.
Why are we on this?
Yeah, it's crazy. Interstate. Yeah, don't even get started on that. I don't think we have time.
Call it reckless.
Exactly. Reckless driving. Yeah. I should write some poems on that. But anyway, it's something to consider, because even if you don't have the background on the business side of things, because not everybody does, you still have to understand where the motives for someone who is putting up the money to get that book out there, or to fund that film or whatever. They're looking at how is this going to return a profit. So if we can at least understand the very basics of the supply and demand, is there a need for this? Is anyone clamoring for this particular type of story? And if they are, then are they going to be willing to pay for it? So you have to be able to be okay with the idea that your story will become part of a business. So it can't be so wrapped up in just, this is my creative baby and it should make billions of dollars, because that's not the reality of things. Not everybody is going to be J.K. Rowling and hit it when she did. Now, she obviously went through struggles and finally got it, and then it gets into Warner Brothers and bam, blows up and she's a billionaire. That's not the reality of the majority of writers. So if you're going to be creative, be a creator and a creative for the sake, because that's what you have to do. I have an innate sense that I have to write. I cannot not write. And by the look of other people, like, they hate writing. Okay, fine, it's not your passion. But for me to tell a story and to put my ideas out there, you just have to realize that you're not the only thing that's also, the person out there is also feeling that way, or you're not. There's other businesses out there that are also trying to compete for those entertainment dollars, and But I've always thought a good book was a great investment for anyone, just simply because of they're not super expensive. But even if you pay $16 for a book, you're going to get hours and hours of enjoyment and mental stimulation, and you're going to learn something, and your brain's going to get just that much more intelligent, simply because you engage yourself in reading and literature. So
being a science teacher, there's a chemical process that happens when you're writing, right?
Absolutely.
What's that called?
Oh, you're creating endorphins, and so when you release those endorphins, that's the happy hormone inside of your brain, as compared to just being super stressed and having those toxic but necessary hormones also going through. I mean, evolutionarily, we still need those stress hormones as well, to simply to keep us alive. But getting those endorphins and dopamine, it's a feeling, and it's addictive.
Everybody has it. It's the brain, isn't it? It's the function between. What's that?
It's those reward centers, right? Like that, for like when you complete a task and something like that, you get that release of it into the brain, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, man, we'd love to have you back. Please come back for another episode, and we'll pick up and dive deeper into some of the stories, because they're, we're big fans of you. That's the given. tell everybody where they can find you and what you got coming down the pipeline.
Okay, that sounds great. It's mutual, my friends. So it's definitely mutual, and I'd love to come back on. Be a good time. This was fun.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Cover the driver's ed part, or the.
Yeah.
I'll try to come up with a poem for you.
I'll turn into that.
At the end, they have to crash.
Well, just always a crash.
The airbags all go off.
I mean, I'll warm you up to this one. There's let's go interstate, semi, random tire rolling down the road. Okay. Real story. True story, people. True story. Yeah. Okay, so they can find Brad LaMar on LinkedIn. You have your own website, right, Brad LaMar? Yeah, you know what? I just kind of let that die away because I feel like getting more traffic through YouTube and on social media, and then now with narrative retail as well. So I feel like this is a better use of my time, like we talked about.
Yeah, 100%. So you can go to narrativeretail.com, go under storytellers and creators, and you'll find Brad's name. He's got all kinds of merch and books and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thanks for stopping in, man. Everyone, thank you for listening. Hope everyone's having a good day. And we're the Shepherds. We're out.
Later.